Thanks for being here. I'm going to go ahead and start with our land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for Indigenous neighbors, the Lummi Nation and Nooksack tribe, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Excuse me, let more people in here. Okay. One thing I want to mention before we really get started is that October is Domestic Violence Month. I included a portion of the President's proclamation in the agenda, but I'll hope you join me in thanking the first responders, service providers, and community members who work to make sure everyone can live in safety with dignity and respect. It's a big job that they do, and it's crucial to our society, let alone our housing system. My name's Terry Bryant. Use she, her pronouns. I work at Opportunity Council. I'm the director of the Lock 'em Homeless Service Center there, and I'm chair of this group. Please introduce yourselves in chat. Add an email in there if you want us to be add you to our mailing list. We have a lot of people joining today and speaking. I'm really thrilled for having so much expertise here. The topic today is emergency shelter. And here's who we've got attending. I'm kind of looking at the participant list to see who's here at the same time. But I'll tell you who I think will be here. Hannah Hartman is already here. She's the Executive Director of Sun Community Services. Ashley Buerger, Executive Director of Road to Home. I think I saw Doug entering, Doug Gustafson, who is the Chairman of Homes Now Not Later, and Kellie-Anne Reichman, hope I pronounced that right, Director of Crisis and Outreach Services at Lighthouse Ministries, and also Teresa Hohman, the Housing Director at the YWCA. So I don't want to take too much time away from them, but I know that Hannah has an obligation. So I think if you don't mind, Hannah, could you start by talking about Sun's emergency shelter services, and afterwards we'll see if we can field questions so that you can get to your next obligation.
Yeah, definitely, no worries. Can I share my screen? Okay. See if that works. Can we see okay? Okay. Hi, my name is Hannah Osborne. I am the Executive Director of Sun Community Service. Sun Community Service has been around since 1975. I believe we originally started on the Western Washington University campus as a resource for students that were experiencing behavioral health crises. And it's slowly grown over the years until kind of what we are now. So I'm here to talk specifically today about Sun House, which is a 9-bedroom emergency shelter. So we are a 90-day emergency shelter. We serve Whatcom County. There are 7 single rooms here. We have 1 double room in case we find a pair that works really well together. And we have 1 ADA accessible room. As an emergency shelter, we have a 24/7 staff presence. There is always someone available in the event of an emergency or a crisis. And there is also always a management staff that is on call all year round. We are a clean and sober facility, and we provide food and meals for residents that stay here. In order to stay at Sun House, you need to have a behavioral health diagnosis, or will be receiving one shortly after arriving at Sun House. You must be experiencing homelessness, and you must be connected with a case manager. If you are taking a medication, you must have a current prescriber that is willing to prescribe you that medication. You don't have to take medication when you stay at Sun House, but if you are taking medication, we like you to have an up-to-date prescriber. You also must be willing or able to submit to a UA upon arrival for intake. We do make occasional exceptions. For instance, if someone's coming to us straight from the hospital or from a treatment facility. And I know I'm whipping through this really fast, but I figure there will be plenty of time, and I love questions. So to get referred to Sun House, referrals come to us in 3 different ways. Through coordinated entry, I work very closely with the Whatcom Homeless Service Center. If we have an opening, I will reach out to them and say, hey, we've got an opening. Who do you have that fits our eligibility criteria and who you want to send over? Occasionally we have what are known as priority referrals, which are folks that meet our eligibility criteria, but are coming from one of the programs that you can see listed on the screen. So the GRACE program, LEAD program, mental health court, or are exiting an institution such as the hospital, treatment, crisis triage, jail, etc. And occasionally we will receive referrals from outside of coordinated entry, and those tend to be folks that don't meet the criteria necessarily to be eligible for a referral from the Whatcom Homeless Service Center right away. So, questions. I'm sure people have a lot of them. I just wanted to kind of run through the basics of what the shelter is, and then if anyone else has questions, you can always feel free to ask them now or reach out via email.
I'll ask one while I'm waiting for other folks to formulate their thoughts. Can you give us some examples of non-coordinated entry referrals you might get and why?
So a non-coordinated entry referral that I might receive is, let's say somebody has a client who is being treated at, for example, North Sound Behavioral Center down in the Seattle area. And they're originally from this area, but they have been in treatment for longer than 90 days. Which I believe, and I've been out of the game for a little while, so Terry, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that kind of in HUD's definition rolls you past that like 90-day barrier. And so that would make them ineligible for the housing pool if they've been in an institution for more than 90 days. As a result, the case manager could reach out and say, hey, I've got this person that, you know, they did the initial 90-day program and then they just weren't feeling completely stable, so they stayed for an extra 2 months. Those would be a non-coordinated entry referral that we would take a look at. Once they got here, we would also, of course, encourage them to go to the Opportunity Council and get connected and get an intake to reestablish services. But we would be able to consider them to stay here.
Keeping an eye on the chat for questions. I'll just pause for a minute to see if anyone else has them. I will have more otherwise. Okay, my next question is, what's your relationship with the jail? How would someone from the jail get connected to a stay at Sun House?
So from the jail, we tend to receive some referrals from the mental health court, and they tend to work with folks that are in the jail. It also might be that folks staying in the jail might be connected to, I think, Lifeline and sometimes the Lake Whatcom Center. They would be eligible for referring folks to us.
Thanks, Hannah. What's it like? What can someone expect who hasn't been there before and they get a referral? What will it be like for them when they arrive and begin their stay?
Yeah, excellent question. So we try and keep the intake process pretty casual. There is certain information that we need to know for our records. But people will show up, do the intake. The initial intake takes about an hour, hour and a half. And then folks are shown to their room. They have the ability to kind of lock the door on their room if they want, to provide them a space where they feel safe. And then we just allow them to kind of acclimatize to the house, introduce themselves to staff, show them where food is, where the bathroom is, get them all set up with their bedding, show them where the laundry facilities are. And then about a week after they've been with us, my operations manager, Miranda, or I, depending on who's available, will set up a goals meeting with that resident. And so we ask that resident and their case managers to come to that meeting, prepared to discuss goals that they want to work on during their 90-day stay here. We try not to get people overloaded all at once. They're like, I'm going to get Social Security and I'm going to find housing and I'm going to get my license back. Like, we try and keep goals attainable, but also not so the person feels overwhelmed, because at Sun House, we do want people to be able to feel relaxed and calm and safe. So that's part of why we have someone on 24/7, so that there's always someone. And you can't sleep in the middle of the night, you're having bad dreams, you can come downstairs and chat with one of our lovely overnight staff.
Thanks, Hannah.
Mhm.
If folks want to put questions in the chat, I'll be happy to read them out. I'll ask another question though. What can someone expect as they near the end of their 90 days?
So one of the expectations when folks are staying here at Sun is that the inevitable goal is moving on to another housing opportunity. And so during your stay here, staff is going to be checking in with the case manager and with the resident regularly to be like, hey, you know, how's it going? Do you have a plan after this? Because the last thing we want is for people to go from this really stable environment to having to go back out on the streets. And so our hope is that everyone comes in with the end goal of housing or somewhere safe to stay in the end. So we check in very regularly with case managers. We request that residents sign ROIs so we can have open communication, discuss possible housing opportunities. If there is the event where I need to request an extension for this person for a month because they have a housing opportunity come up, but there's just that month gap in between, that way I can get that done so we can continue to support that person.
Thanks, Hannah. Doug has a question. Is the 90-day limit a hard limit? Was it always 90 days or was that introduced at some point?
Historically, I do not know. I have been the executive director for a little less than a year. The entire time I've been here, it has been a 90-day stay. It is not always a hard limit. Occasionally, like I mentioned, there will be people that are like, you know, I've got a housing interview with Citygate, but it's not going to happen until 2 weeks after my deadline to stay here. And so I will reach out and discuss with the health department what an extension might look like. You know, I explain the situation, this person's got a housing opportunity coming up and we want to be able to support them and keep them safe until that happens. So it's usually 90 days, and there are times when it's been less than 90 days. We have had to ask people to leave in the past for breaking the rules or not engaging with the program appropriately. But 90 days is roughly the length of stay that folks have with us.
There's more questions, but real quick, Doug's follow-up is, after the 90 days, what percentage of people found housing?
I do not have those numbers for you right now, but I can get them for you if you are interested.
And then Annette has a question. Is Sun House usually at capacity? How often do you have openings? How long is the wait list?
Okay, it's rapid fire. All right. We try and stay at capacity as much as possible. If I know that people are coming to the end of their 90 days and they have a housing opportunity coming up, I will go ahead and reach out to the Whatcom Homeless Service Center and say, hey, I'm going to have an opening. Can you send me a referral for that spot? So we try and operate at capacity as much as possible. It might be that if a referral comes in and they are not appropriate for Sun House, then I have to decline them. And so it might be that there are gaps of time where we have a couple of open rooms, but we try and fill those as quickly as possible. We don't have a wait list per se. It's just kind of when an opening comes up. If I am reached out to by one of those outside of coordinated entry agencies or programs, or if I know that I'm going to have a spot open and I request one from the home service center.
And if it's okay, I could speak to a little bit about wait list. There's no wait list in coordinated entry. Coordinated entry is a referral system that makes referrals to housing programs as they have openings. And those referrals are done by and large, and I'm oversimplifying, by their vulnerability level and their length of time experiencing homelessness. That's a lot of people. If we narrow it down to who's eligible for this particular program, now we're looking at single individuals who have or anticipate a mental health diagnosis. And then even within that group, there's a way to prioritize people according to their need. Because one thing I would ask Hannah is that, are people who go to Sun House required to have behavioral health case management? And what could a behavioral health case manager expect that they might need to do to support their client there?
To the best of my knowledge, and Barbara or Chris can feel free to connect or correct me from this, but I don't believe it has to be behavioral health case management per se. I think the majority of people that we receive have behavioral health case managers, but it might be that someone is coming to us with a diagnosis from another organization and all they have is a housing case manager. Basically, what we're looking for is we want someone to have support from an outside agency, because Sun does not provide case management here. So we don't want someone to get here and just kind of flounder in what can sometimes be a really intimidating social services network that we have here in Whatcom County. And so we just ask that they have some kind of outside support.
I'm going to be quiet for a minute to give someone else a chance because I have more questions. Oh, Marcus has a question. So Sun doesn't have to go through coordinated entry. Yes, you can do independent admission. Correct me if I heard wrong.
It depends on the situation. Occasionally we can take people from outside of coordinated entry. Usually those people are coming from some kind of long-term facility. We don't tend to take people that are coming straight from the streets and that don't have like a direct connection to a social service agency in the area.
My next question is, how are meals handled there?
Excellent question. We have space here. Most people tend to come in with food stamps or utilize the local food pantries, but Sun provides food for breakfast, lunch, and then our staff cooks the evening meal every night. I've had some staff people get very inventive what they're making for dinner. But also I know that one of the most popular things here are the chili dogs that one of my staffers makes for dinner.
I'd go for a chili dog.
Same.
How many belongings do you allow people to bring in?
Oh gosh, I don't have a limit on it. I ask that people don't bring in furniture. But most people come in with at least 3 or 4 suitcases, maybe a couple of extra bags. It depends on where they were living before. We do belongings checks when folks come in, because anything that could be a weapon is kept locked up safely. Staff or residents can access it if they're on their way out of the house, but while they're in the house, they're not allowed to have access to it.
My last question, I swear. How do people manage their medications while they stay at Sun House?
Excellent question. Medications are kept locked up behind the staff desk downstairs. Residents have binders that have medication sheets in them. Staff does not administer medication while folks are staying here, but we keep all the resident medications, and they come down at the times that they are supposed to take those medications, depending on what the prescription says. And then staff will basically put the medication down, and residents will take their medication in front of staff while staff logs that residents have taken their medications. Things that are necessary for life-saving emergencies, such as like maybe an emergency inhaler or an EpiPen, are things that residents are encouraged to keep on their persons, but the rest of it remains kept with the staff.
I lied, I have one more question. Although, Doug, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Oh, what was my question? I forgot it. Oh, I remember. What do you wish people knew or understood better about Sun House?
That we are small but mighty. I think one of the most important things for me in taking over this position and working at Sun House is I like when residents come in and you just get to watch them slowly relax as they settle in here and they start to feel comfortable. And I come in every morning and go through the kitchen and say hi to so-and-so while they're making cereal for breakfast or brewing another pot of coffee. And it is a warm, friendly environment. And I like that we are able to continuously foster a sense of safety and comfort for folks that are maybe struggling in other aspects of their life.
Thanks, Hannah. I wish we had more Sun Houses.
I do too.
Any other questions for Hannah before we go to our next speaker? Check the chats. Okay, thanks so much, Hannah. I really appreciate your time. Good to see you, even though we're on a monitor.
I know.
All right, if it's okay, I'm wondering if Kellie-Anne would mind going next. Kellie-Anne is the Director of Crisis and Outreach Services at Lighthouse Mission Ministries. And Kellie-Anne, I think that you've been there forever, I feel like. And you primarily operate base camp, is that right, or is there more?
Yes, that's correct. I have been with Lighthouse Mission for a little over 7 years. I started out as a case manager at our Agape home for women and children. In part, my desire to go back there is based on my own lived experience. I was a resident of Agape home about 13 years ago. And so I worked for Agape for about a year as the mission opened up what used to be called the drop-in center and is now base camp. And I kind of watched from a distance to make sure it didn't literally and metaphorically burn to the ground. And after about a year, I jumped over to what we call crisis services in our low barrier shelter. I believed then and still do to this day that there's something very sacred and beautiful about being with people at ground zero and kind of meeting them right where they're at and not having a lot of barriers to get into a program and receive services. As I'm sure many of us in the community are aware of and agree that when those very, very basic needs are not met, it's very difficult to engage in any other kind of services such as SUD services or mental health counseling and things like that. So it was just last September actually, that I took over as director of base camp, which encompasses crisis and outreach services for Lighthouse Mission. Yeah. You want me to give kind of a snapshot of what base camp is?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And I don't have any slides or anything to share with you guys. I'm literally standing in my kitchen over my stove, also cooking dinner. So forgive me in advance. So Base Camp is and was designed to be a low barrier shelter, which means that a person can come there in basically any condition. And really we do have a code of conduct, which are the rules we have for Base Camp so that it's a safe place for everybody. But really, if a person can not be a danger to themselves or other people, we want to try to figure out how we can, one, meet them where they're at, and two, get them to the highest place of stability they possibly can so that they can engage in more and different services, whether that be with us or whether that be out in the community. We've spent a number of years, I've spent a number of years, specifically the last 5, really working to kind of unsilo our program and become a good neighbor and a good community partner, and kind of build and cultivate relationships with other agencies and organizations in the community. Because what I experienced myself is both being an unsheltered person as well as coming into this work, were many situations where there's lots of people trying to help, but oftentimes without good relationship and communication among agencies, we were all working for the same person, sometimes in different directions. And so I just really appreciate and have a heart for collaboration in the community. So we at Base Camp, we are open 24/7. We offer a day shelter and a night shelter. We 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in our day room is where our day shelter services are, and people can be there. We have tables and chairs set up. That's where we serve meals throughout the day. They can plug in a device. We have a medical clinic come in from CMAR once a week. Unity Care comes in with a tabling event every week. Opportunity Council comes in once a month and does a tabling event. We also do lots of different vaccine clinics, both for people and their furry friends, and just really also have a heart to invite people in, because sometimes the people that we're serving have a lot of barriers to receiving services or the resources that are out in the community. And so we do try to offer as much as we can there on site at Base Camp while someone is stabilizing. And then we also have our night shelter, which is 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. We have a capacity of 200. We have been near or at capacity for about a year solid, even during the summer months this year. We will and do increase those beds by a bit in the winter time. On site at Base Camp, we have in case of emergency beds for people who are extremely vulnerable or if there is some kind of weather event. We, for many years, have also been involved in cold weather shelter during the winter. This year, that's not something we'll be involved in, but I think there are other community partners that are planning to possibly utilize the space that we have on Holly Street and oversee a cold weather shelter. And as far as outreach, we, at this point, because of really low staffing levels and the need to kind of keep that core warm where we're at Base Camp, our outreach services have been kind of on an as needed basis. We are bringing our shower trailer out on Wednesdays of every week, and then Opportunity Council is bringing it out on Thursdays. We are open also to more partnerships if anyone's interested in using that shower trailer. We have a little better idea now of how that works to lend it out to another community partner. But yeah, other services we offer at Base Camp include case management. That is everyone who is at Base Camp is not necessarily case managed. And I do want to kind of make that clear. Case management, because we only have 3, sometimes 4 case managers and 200 people. Oftentimes those are people that we have either identified or who have requested case management or are part of one of our what we call specialty dorms at this point, which are programs with some additional responsibility as well as some additional benefits to them, including a length of stay agreement, some additional intensive case management and advocacy, as well as kind of a more private sleeping area than our main dorm. We have a volunteer cleaning crew that is part of base camp. We have our working dorms for both men and women, and we also host one respite bed for a man and one respite bed for women at base camp that's contracted with Peace Health. So we oftentimes get referrals for those from social workers up at Peace Health, somebody come in through the ER or being released from the hospital that's not quite ready to be out on their own yet and needs a little extra support and care. And then the last one that we have is our family dorms, which kind of were birthed out of necessity a couple of years ago. We were seeing lots of families hit the streets, either in their car or on foot or being dropped off by the police department or border patrol agencies. And we didn't at that point have any services at base camp for families, but we have been able to convert the couple very small rooms we have and put some bunk beds in them. And our hope was for that to be a very temporary kind of a situation for a family. But as we all know, there was quite a funding cliff after COVID for services for families in the community, including motel stays. So right now we have 2 families there that has been consistently full. We have a wait list of about 25 families. The 2 families we've had there, one has been there for 2 months, one has been there for 7 months. So yeah, we offer 3 meals a day. As of October 1st, those inside meals are offered to people who are staying the night before, but we do have also meals for people that just come to our door during meal times, and those are nutrient dense, non-perishable to-go bags of food. I don't know what else I can add, Terry, but I'm open to any questions.
I want to pause and give others a chance before I jump in, because I always have a bunch of questions. I don't want to monopolize. And you can put your questions in chat. I don't mind reading those aloud at all. Here we go. Erin, is there a maximum amount of time a family can stay?
So, like, yes and no. We do have a family dorm contract, and we do ask and expect that one of the priorities of a family who's coming into base camp is to find and secure housing and not reject any offer of housing. It really has varied since we opened those dorms up. I know in our new building, our intent is to have a year-long emergency family program. But right now it is kind of based on the individual family, kind of what resources are available to them. That longer stay family and a few others that we've had come through also have some immigration issues, which makes things even more difficult for them. We've had people dropped off that don't have immigration hearings until 2025.
That is tough. I'm gonna pause, allow others to ask before I jump in.
I have a quick question, Kellie-Anne. We were at base camp recently and were told that meals would not be provided at all to folks who did not have a bed the previous night. But I heard you say that you had some nutrient dense, like to-go bags. I'm curious, about capacity, like numbers of folks you can serve through walk-ups. And I'm also curious if you have an idea of the numbers served who may not be served anymore with the changes at base camp. No.
Yeah, and that's a great question because we had not been necessarily counting the number of meals that we were serving before. I could estimate it based on, what the chef told me they brought over and the serving size that we were giving, but I would say an estimate of what we were serving per day was 300 meals at lunch and around 300 at dinner. And if we stick within our 200-ish capacity of people who are staying the night before, that leaves about 100 gap. And so we have been preparing and having those bagged meals delivered to us daily. And that was always the intent. And I apologize for any misinformation that you received. But we will continue to do that as long as we are operating kind of under these guidelines for services.
Janice.
Question. Thanks. Kellie-Anne, thank you so much for the work that you do down at base camp. That's just a great campus that you have down there. Thank you so much.
Thank
You
you.
know, in the old building, sometimes I was able to stop by the kitchen and drop off some in-kind stuff, maybe something I got at a really good price at Safeway or something. And
Yeah.
that always seemed to be appreciated. But now I understand maybe your kitchen is over by the hospital. I just don't know where it is or if you're accepting that kind of donation or.
Yes, yeah, great question. Because of the demolition of our old building, we're kind of scattered all over town, and all of us looking very forward to being all back in the same building again. But in the meantime, we're actually using one of Peace Health's kitchens that's attached to their health education center.
Oh,
So if you were traveling down Sunset and took that right to go to the hospital,
I know where Heck is. So
yeah.
do we just go to the back or what?
Yeah, so if you drive around, if you're looking at the Heck building and you go to the right, like as if you're going to go around back, you'll see mission vehicles parked out there as well as signs, and they've got a little doorbell. If you ever want to drop something off, just go ahead and ring that doorbell. There'll be someone there actually 7 days a week during business hours.
Great. That's great information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask a question. We all know that Lighthouse Mission Ministries is a faith-based organization. And sometimes I see remarks in the community that I think, that doesn't sound right to me. Can you tell me what a guest at the mission can expect with regard to your religious programming?
Absolutely. I'm actually really glad you asked that question, Terry, because I come across comments or questions often, and think there is still, for some reason, some urban legends out in the community about the mission and receiving services at the mission. Base camp specifically, there is no religious or faith-based requirement for someone to stay with us. There is no religious or faith-based programming that anyone has to participate in. The closest thing to anything connected even to religious or any kind of faith-based is that we pray before our meals. We don't ask people to participate or anything of that nature. Now, if someone were to want to apply for and enter into one of the mission's recovery programs, so Agape Home or the Ascent program, there is a faith element there, but still, if you don't identify with a Christian faith, you can still certainly go into those programs. But yeah, we are not preaching from a pulpit. We are not asking anybody to memorize and recite Bible verses. We are not openly proselytizing anyone and trying to get them to convert to a Christian faith. And that's very important to me. And I believe important to the people that stay with us too. We do offer, I guess the other thing that we do offer our guests, if ever appropriate, is if they would like prayer, they're welcome to come and talk to staff about that. But none of that is insisted upon or pushed on anyone who's staying with us. Yeah. Thanks for that question.
Yeah. I have more. Next question is, what quantity of belongings can someone have with them during their stay at the mission, or at base camp, I should say specifically?
Yeah, so we do have a bag or belonging limit. And I don't know how many of you have seen the beds that we have. If you haven't, feel free to stop in and come see me and check them out. But we have these great beds that have a hydraulic lift and they actually have storage underneath. It's quite a bit of storage. You could probably fit 3 large suitcases underneath of a bed. And we just ask for people to keep their belongings to a reasonable amount. We do definitely engage with people sometimes about identified kind of hoarding behavior and things like that. But also, even in that, our staff will offer to help somebody downsize and do that in a delicate kind of a way, because we want to be a safe place. We also want it to be sanitary, and we want to have the space that we have, we want to use for people and not stuff. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What can a guest expect when they stay at base camp? Could they use the same bed every night? Can they leave their belongings under the bed during the day?
Yes, definitely. And so part of the benefit of having these beds, many of you may remember that our old method was we just had mats on the floor. But with these beds and having bed numbers, we're actually, when somebody comes in and does an intake or they're returning to services, we can actually assign them a bed. And it, so long as they show up every night for check-in or they're engaged in some positive pro-social activity in the community, then we will, or work or something to that degree, we will hang on to their beds and they will remain in that same bed until they have a planned exit from services, or if they were to abandon it.
Oh, Katie Stevens has a question. What's the What's the best way for our case managers to coordinate with base camp staff to support mutual participants who need help to access medical counseling, fill out paperwork, etc.?
Yeah, I would definitely hit up any of the base camp case managers. And I don't know how it would be most helpful, either sharing their work phone numbers or emails with you guys, but you can always too just call the main line for base camp and ask to speak to a case manager. We want to know and be able to identify those people that need a little bit of extra help. Those are the folks that we want to be able to provide that little bit of extra help for them and that coordination again. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me or our manager Tegan, or just call the main line.
What's the main line there? What's the number?
It is 360-733-5120. And the main extension is 215. My extension is 216. And Tegan's is 218.
Tegan?
Tegan, yeah,
Tegan?
Teagan.
And you said 218, right? I'm just putting in the chat for folks there. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Well, I have more questions. When do you think the new construction will be complete, and what will the transition look like?
Well, I don't know how many of you guys have seen that Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit, but that's like my worst nightmare. But the planned completion and actually our move-in of that building is September of next year. And I actually took a tour of the construction site yesterday and had a good chat with the foreman that is there for Dawson Construction, and everything so far is going as planned and on schedule, and they do intend to continue the build through the winter. So we'll see what kind of winter we have, but the anticipated opening date is September 2024.
And how much, I don't know why I can't phrase this question. It's not a complicated one. What's the capacity like at the new building, and what kind of services do you anticipate being provided?
Yeah, so there will be an increase in capacity at the new building to 300. So going from 200 to 300 with an additional capacity with capacity for an additional 100 during emergency events or weather events or things like that. And so kind of what it will look like is, and really our hope and the strategic planning that we have been doing for the last few years, very much includes expanding kind of those micro dorm or specialty program shelters within a shelter that we talked a little bit about. And that includes a much larger dorm for people who are medically fragile. That includes a mental health dorm for people who are suffering from organic mental illness and maybe stabilizing on a medication or just need that extra support. That will also include a much more robust family program. We'll have 6 dorms for families, which I think is obviously is really needed in the community. We will also have some tiered programs for people who are maybe considering going into a recovery program or into some other type of transitional housing in the community, but aren't quite there yet. And then also, we will have our own kind of version at base camp of a kind of a light touch recovery program that is kind of an intake dorm for the other programs. We'll continue to have some low barrier beds, but each space in the new building has been really thoughtfully designed in much smaller dorms. So there won't be like an open bay dorm like we have our men's dorm right now with 130 some beds. That's really overwhelming for anyone to sleep in a dorm with 129 other people. And so we've worked to kind of separate out the different populations that we have at base camp and kind of their where they're at in the stages of change and design our new programs mindfully around that. Yeah. I feel like I'm forgetting one of the, so end of the day on a Thursday. Our working dorms, of course, we will expand those. Those have been actually really successful programs, and we had hoped that they had, and I'm actually really surprised and encouraged by how much success people have had. We have those working dorms, so someone needs to be working out in the community at a job, but they have their own space they can go to, open access to showers, laundry, things like that. But it was such a need because a lot of the jobs that people are able to get are like swing shift or night shift. And because we close our main dorms down during the day, there was nowhere for people to sleep and get any rest so that they could go back to work that night. And so offering kind of that separate space and a separate kitchen area and things like that. We have a 9-month length of stay on those working dorms and working with a case manager and saving money and coming up with the housing plans. But our average length of stay back there until graduation has been 5 to 6 months. We've even had some people who are in those smaller dorms. There's 3 beds in a men's working dorm. We've even had some guys who met back there, both working jobs, and then decided to pool their money and move out together and get an apartment, which I think is a fantastic thing. Yeah, so we'll expand those, and then we'll also have, we'll continue to have our volunteer, we call it our Exodus Storm work crew that will help out at base camp, but also has some goals to maybe get a job in the community or they're waiting for their SSDI to come through or something like that, that gives them some purpose and some buy-in to the community and gives them some ownership and also some job skills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
COVID was crazy, right? I'm just trying to remember going in the Wayback Machine here when you moved all of your services into the high school And I think in coordination with the city, and I think maybe even some WTA buses. Can you tell me what that was like? And what was it like to operate out of the high school?
Well, I don't know if any of you have watched the series The Walking Dead. I only make that reference because of like it was bizarre taking over a high school, right? We went from our little spot down there on Holly Street, and you know the whole world was in a complete panic over COVID, and we really did. I mean, there were lots of conversations that happened, but really the whole move happened in a matter of 12 hours. Getting all our folks and getting everything up to the high school, and then staying there for the months that we did. We were really, I feel like we learned a lot about too, like the need for what the community was calling social distancing, but I'd like to just call a little bit more personal space for people. We were packed in like sardines down at the Holly Street address. And when people had a little bit more elbow room, it really had, I think, a positive, significant impact on people's mental and physical health. And so, yeah, that was wild. That was a really wild season for us. I feel like, you know, we pulled it off pretty well, though. The only negative really thing that happened while we were there was one broken window, and I count that as success. So, yeah.
I was amazed when that happened. And also need to give credit to County Health for supporting with that transition too. But when I think back on it, I'm still amazed. Yeah, anyways, yeah, it happened, and it happened the way it needed to and when it needed to.
Yeah.
And on that note, what are you thinking about this winter season and COVID? We're already seeing a little bit of upticks in cases. I'm working from home today because I had a sniffle. I was scared. I didn't want to go to work. What's that like working at base camp?
Yeah, it it does get pretty tricky in a congregate living environment, right? We do have a lot of people who are really susceptible, a lot of people who are very vulnerable. We have people staying with us who are transplant recipients, who are on immune suppressant drugs. We have a lot of elderly folks with pre-existing health conditions. And so we do, you know, we will continue our cleaning protocols, and we, you know, through the bulk of the COVID pandemic a couple years ago, there were times where we were, you know, working closely with the health department, and we received a CLIA waiver to become a testing site, and that we also had the quarantine facility up at Motel 6. And so there were points where we were testing every person every night, and if they were positive, you know, working through that paperwork with them and getting them up to the quarantine facility. But as we all know, there is no more quarantine facility. We have partnered with Peace Health in the purchase of tents and sleeping bags for people that are all identical so that we can identify them easily in the community. So far, with the weather holding out for the most part, that hasn't been as challenging, and most people are happy to, you know, just have a tent and sleeping bag and be out for just a couple of days, and then we can bring them back in. There is always an option for us to make an exception. Again, if somebody's really vulnerable, or they have an underlying health condition, or they're just really scared. We have quarantined people inside of base camp before, and are willing to do that again. We did attempt to send some COVID positive people to the hospital, and they were unfortunately turned away and told that COVID isn't deadly anymore. So it's just like the flu. So, but people are still, you know, people are still scared. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see this winter without the same resources, how we can navigate through that. But one thing about our team is that we are pretty scrappy. And we have the ability to pivot and get creative and make sure that we are caring for the people that show up at our doors. So, yeah, I think more will kind of be revealed through this winter season.
Thanks, Kelly-Anne. I missed a question from Katie Stevens. Has base camp been seeing capacity pretty full as the weather gets cooler / wetter? I feel like it's just been full no matter the weather.
Yeah, it has just been full no matter the weather. And even as we see, we typically see people go out during kind of the nice sunny season. What has happened is that new people have come to take their place. And so I think people in the last couple of years have gotten a little bit more mindful about like not abandoning a bed or just like letting us know what's up or where you're at so that we can hang on to your bed. Because really the same day a bed opens up, it usually is occupied by a new person coming in. So
Thank you
yeah.
so much for this, Kelly-Anne. I really appreciate your time, especially now that I know that you're at home trying to make dinner at the same time. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Any
Yeah,
other
definitely.
questions? Okay, I think we'll keep going then. Thanks again. Really, really we appreciate all the work the mission does for our community. And I'm looking at the participant list. I'm just going to ask, is Teresa from the YWCA here? I don't see her name. That's okay. We'll keep going. Ashley from Road to Home. It's your turn.
Sorry about that. Well, everyone kind of gave a little overview of their organization, so I'm happy to do the same for folks who aren't familiar. I'm Ashley Buerger, the director of Road to Home, and we have been around since 2019, and we currently offer a number of programs for the community. One being case management services to Garden View Tiny Home Village, and we also provide a volunteer community ally program where we recruit and train individuals in the community in trauma-informed care and best practices and working with vulnerable populations. And then we pair them with individuals in our programs to provide one-on-one support, really focusing on relationship and connection. And then the hope is that they work towards achieving self-identified goals. We also provide so that community training is free to anyone who wants to attend. It's a virtual training offered. We try to do a weekend day and a weekday. So if you are interested in attending or sharing that resource, it is available. Feel free to just reach out to me. Actually, I could even put our program manager's email in the chat. I'm done. And then the last couple winters, we've responded to emergency programming. We took over the COVID isolation and quarantine facility from Lighthouse Mission and Seymour and operated that for 8 months. Last winter, we provided a severe weather shelter in collaboration with the city of Bellingham and never say it, the Whatcom County Health and Community Services. Can you write it down so I can reference it? Which was a program that was open when the temperature dropped below 28 degrees. This winter, we are working on a partnership with the city of Bellingham and the Whatcom County Health and Community Services again to provide a winter shelter. Currently, our goal is to provide a 3-month winter shelter. Right now, we're targeting December 1 as an open date and closure through the end of February. That would be a night-by-night shelter, first come, first serve. And our capacity that we're looking at right now is about 45 beds. We've got a new winter shelter program manager, Rebecca, who's on the call with us. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for being here tonight. Who will be managing that program and is working really hard right now to recruit staff and get everything ready and prepared for the winter season. Yeah, and the current location that we're talking about is Civic Field locker rooms, same location as last year. Yep, good timing, Eve. And we don't have contact information regarding how to get a hold of the shelter at this point in time. We're going to be working the next couple of weeks, next month and a half, to get all of that contact info in place, and we'll share that out as soon as we have it. And our current operating hours that we're looking at is 7 p.m. to 8. So that's a little bit about the winter shelter. I know that was kind of like a brief overview, but I also wanted to give Heidi a little bit of time to talk about Garden View.
All right, I was muted. Let me give a little overview of Garden View. So Garden View is a low barrier shelter.
Did we lose Heidi or is it me?
I think we lost her.
Oh, shoot. Well, while we're waiting to see if she unfreezes, I just wanted to mention something about that community ally training. I did that training once. It is high quality. It's as high quality as any professional case manager would receive. So strongly recommend that training. Yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like she dropped off. I'm not sure what she was planning. Oh, she's back. Planning to say, I can jump in if we can't get her. You are muted, Heidi.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, I see Dawn going like this. It happened again.
Well, I'll jump in as we navigate some technical issues. For folks who don't know, Garden View Village is a tiny home village located off of Lakeway and Woburn. We currently have 30 units on site, 35 units on site. We had added 5 more last December, which was really exciting because it increased our capacity to serve folks immediately. It's in partnership with the City of Bellingham and the Low Income Housing Institute, which is a Seattle-based organization, and it currently offers 24/7 staffing. Lehigh manages the day-to-day operations, and Road to Home provides the case management services. And we have a combined two full FTEs, case management and villages. And I see Heidi back and her screen is working. Heidi, you might want to turn off your camera and then maybe you can jump in from here.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. What's an FTE? Because I don't know what that means.
Yeah, sorry, a full-time equivalent. So a full one full FTE is a 40-hour full-time position.
Oh, okay, yeah, but it might not be 40 hours like 9 to 5. It might be like the amount of work is equivalent to a 40-hour a week job kind of thing, is what you're saying.
For us, it's pretty traditional. It's like a 9 to 5.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But it might be more than one person. So it could be like 3 people each working a third of a full time.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because when I heard full-time equivalent, I was like, oh, is that like one person working different hours than the 9 to 5? Okay, that makes sense.
Thanks, Dad.
Hospital jargon.
Yeah,
But yes, that's true. So, yes, I don't, sorry about my technical issues. I don't know what happened there. My internet's dropping me on and off. So the case managers work to set client-led goals. Where did I leave off here? Our residents are 55 plus and or medically fragile, and everybody is primarily working on the goal of being permanently housed. However, stably housed is not the only goal. We believe it is very important to build that community muscle, and that is one of the things that we're working on at Garden View. Often people have lost or have a weakened sense of community, and community can be a replacement for family, for connection, and for trust. And there are many areas of a whole person that need healing before we can recover from the trauma of being unsheltered, and before we can expect to succeed in permanent housing. So these are just some of the things that we're working on at Garden View, and we've really seen a lot of success over the past 2 years since we've been open. And we continue to grow and learn. And yeah, I'm open to any questions.
I'll pause for a minute because you know me, I've got plenty.
I have a question. So I'm curious, what Garden View's success rate is. So like, after somebody exits Garden View versus like in one way or another, who was able to get into housing or who was able to get into a permanent housing situation or something to that effect. I'm just curious.
Right. So so far we've had about 29 people to date that have gotten into permanent housing.
Okay. And that would be out of how many exits though? Like I'm just curious, like out of a total of exits.
Of 89 people served.
Okay, cool.
Okay, my first question is, what's the path for someone to be placed at Garden View?
You can jump in.
People, people that have, yeah.
Go ahead, Heidi.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So 2 pathways. We don't, Garden View doesn't take walk-up or self-referrals at this time, but there are 2 agencies that refer into Garden View Village. Is that what you're getting at, Terry? Okay, pathway and referrals. Okay. So the Welcome Home the Service Center is currently one of the referring partners into Garden View Village, and then the Road to Home Volunteer Ally Program, Community Ally Program, is the other program that refers into the village. And so that program is working with folks who are living on the streets, encampments, and vehicles, doubled up, family members. Our Ally Program manager is working with folks in building a similar process around intakes and prioritization and then referring into the village. So those are the 2 programs that refer in at this time.
Thank you. What can a guest expect when they arrive at Garden View after they've been referred? What's your experience like?
So they will come in and they will do an intake with Sue, who works for Lehigh Low Income Housing Institute of Seattle. And then usually within, I'd say 2 to 4 days, they'll meet their case manager and do an intake with us. That first day, they're going to see their unit, they're going to move their stuff in. There's usually a volunteer that's going to help them to move their belongings in. And yeah, just get a tour of the village and start to settle in.
What are meals like there? How's that handled?
So we have a community kitchen that has all the cooking utensils that they would need, some hot plates, microwave, some different cooking devices, and then a shared refrigerator. So we put certain, we have certain ways of denoting which food is shared and which food. So it's been working pretty good so far. And so we have food that's donated, hot meals that are donated by churches. Once or twice a month, there'll be a large meal that's donated by a church. So people come in and they cook on their own if they choose to. Sometimes people will cook together and have joint meals. Yeah, that's typically what it looks like.
Are there laundry facilities there?
There are, yep. So people can sign up for 2-hour slots throughout the day for laundry use, and we have laundry on site, and it's locked, so you can sign up for your laundry slot for 2 hours, and then it's locked, and you can go in there and use the laundry facility, and that's your time for the day.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and that's free to them, the residents here.
Any other questions for the Road to Home team?
Yeah, I put one in the chat. I was just wondering, is there a time limit at Gardenview? So like if somebody comes in there, are they able to stay as long as they need to in order to get into the housing, or is it like Sun House where there's a certain time limit or whatever? I'm just curious.
Right. There's no time limit. They can stay as long as they need, but we like to get people through the program, you know, in about 8 months to a year is what we've seen is the average amount of time to get somebody into permanent housing. So
Cool.
it's give or take, you know, some people take longer and some people are through quicker.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah.
There's some kudos in the chat too. Katie Stevens, thanks Road to Home for stepping into winter severe weather operations. I think we're all extremely grateful for that. I know what a big lift that is. So thank you for that. And then Brianna says that Road to Home has been excellent to work and collaborate with. So thanks you for all your hard work. Really appreciate the three of you being here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, last but not least is Doug Gustafson. And I'm really hoping that we can get enough time to really talk with you about your programs. I'm going to stop talking so you can start.
Okay, yeah. So I'll try to be as you know, concise as possible while getting all the points across. So, hi, I'm Doug, chairman of Homes Now, Not Later. Homes Now has been around since 2017. We manage with the goal of ending homelessness one person at a time. That basically just means every single person has their own situation, and we try to take an individualized approach to help people as needed. We manage 2 out of the 3 tiny home communities in Bellingham, Unity Village down in Fairhaven by the Post Point sewer treatment plant, and Swift Haven up near Civic Field or in the upper Frank Jerry Fields parking lot on Puget Street. Currently, we shelter around 48 people as our capacity between both villages. So Swift Haven has a capacity of 25. Unity Village has a capacity of 23. The thing that makes our model a little bit different than some of the others from today is that we have no paid staff at all. So I'm not paid to do Homes Now. Nobody that works with Homes Now is paid to do anything. We are an all volunteer organization, and our villages are resident managed and resident run, meaning that the people who are homeless and need a place to stay and be sheltered while they're looking for housing are the staff as well. And so we have outside volunteers, but I would say that the vast majority of the volunteers that keep Homes Now running are the residents themselves at both villages. We weren't originally allowed to do resident managed. It was actually specifically forbidden in our permit with the city when we first opened Unity Village. But COVID provided COVID ended up being, there were some good things from COVID. And so one of the good things from COVID was that we were allowed to have a resident managed village, because when COVID first hit, the governor ordered everyone to stay at home. And in our permit, and so my home is my house, not living at the village 3 days a week to be the non-resident board member on site, right? So I followed the governor's orders to stay at home. And we knew, based on the Bellingham Municipal Code, we know that our villages need supervision. So we relied on our resident managers to be that supervision. But it wasn't allowed in our permit. But the permit also said no unnecessary board members or unnecessary volunteers or unnecessary guests will come to the site in order to prevent COVID spread. So I made the argument that none of the board, including myself, was essential to the safe operations of the site. And so through that, we were able to achieve being able to be allowed to have a self-managed resident-run village. And at the time that this happened, this was only Unity Village was in operation. Swift Haven was authorized under emergency authority from the mayor when there was a camp at City Hall, and there was people that were negotiating with the city who were managing that camp. And, and I guess that fell through. So we were, I guess that's when I approached the city and said, we can set up and we were able to get Swift Haven online. So currently we shelter 48 people, and it is a peer-to-peer approach. So so part of the requirements that we have, we have our rules, our code of conduct, and everybody has to sign those rules. This is no illegal drug. It's enforced on a behavior-based approach. It also includes very basic rules like, like not allowing for theft, that people actually have to do their jobs and stuff. So like, since we don't actually have like paid staff, residents who want to live there have to be willing to do a little bit of front desk, like being able to sit at the front desk a couple hours a week to help to greet people at the front gate with donations that come in, and keep the site clean and maintained. Regular maintenance is a thing. So like whenever anybody moves out of a tiny home, there's maintenance to be done. Either like the walls have to be redone, or like the door has to be fixed, or some construction has to be done. Typically, residents have skills. So they might be homeless, but that doesn't mean that they're useless. They have skills and they contribute to everything running right. And so the main idea behind, and of course we encourage people to move out and get into permanent housing so that we can open up a slot for somebody else. But some residents have been with us a long time. So the average length of stay, I would say, is like close to from 6 months to a year is the average stay. Okay. So if somebody has like a full-time job and they're homeless, which there's a lot of them out there, that can happen to you. If the survey is that there's less than $400 in most people's bank account to handle any kind of emergency, and some emergencies cost far more than that. And so any one of you guys in this video chat could become homeless through no fault of your own. Okay, so there's a lot of people in that position, and so people that do well at our villages tend to be people who want to help and contribute and work it with others to help build up the community and make it a better place. We are able to scale up like quicker because we were able to get our second village online in 2 weeks. And the main reason why is because if we were to expand operations and have more villages, we wouldn't actually need a corresponding amount of money on a continuous operations basis in order to succeed with setting up a site. So like all it takes actually is people who are homeless, who need the place to live, but also don't have any problem contributing a little bit. We're not talking full-time job level of contribute. We're talking like a few hours a week, like 5 hours a week, 8 hours a week or something. It's not very much, right? And so we currently have a success rate of about between both villages, we have a success rate of about 50%, 49%. So like when somebody moves out, they've moved into an apartment or a room in a house or something like that. But we also have people that have been with us a long time, sometimes as long as 4 years. But at the same time, and those people the people who've been with us the longest as well, I just want to clarify, tend to be people on disability. So when you're getting that standard, like $850 a month or something like that, a lot of times a tiny home village, even though it's shelter and not housing, but you have your own unit, you have your own key, your own lock, you have control of your own space, as long as you follow the rules and stuff. That might actually be a better living situation for some people than even if they got into that apartment, because we don't charge rent. So we're not taking 30% of their income, 30% of their $850. And then there's also a lot of donations coming in through the front gate and stuff like that. And then other residents who have like money, like a lot of times will help out and like, hey, yeah, like, I'll buy the stuff with my food stamps for the barbecue. And, we don't serve like meals, like as an organization. Everybody's kind of responsible for their own food, but at the same time, we do every once in a while, like every week or every other week or something, we'll make a community meal, and like it's usually a barbecue, like some burgers and dogs or something, and if we get donations, that's all we do get donations actually. So from a lot of the food bank, from Starbucks, from and a lot of times it's food that's like, hey, it's still good, but it's technically expired, and it ends up supplementing to some extent. And then but back to what I was saying is like at these villages, it's a peers helping peers model. People who are homeless helping people who are homeless. I feel like that if you are homeless, you are more of an expert on homelessness than any kind of person who could get a college education in homelessness out of college who isn't homeless. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to say we're perfect or anything, but I'm very proud of how we've done with what we've got. We're very scrappy. We don't take the big government money for operations. No, we have no paid staff. It's all volunteer. We get virtually no police calls unless it's usually somebody external coming to the village that we don't know. And then we've had to like one time somebody came in through the gate and then ran into one of the tiny homes and locked himself inside and was like, "This is my home. I live here now." And it's like, "Oh, no, it doesn't work like that." Actually, like there's a process. Like we have a website, and you're disqualified at this point. But so that's what I mean is like whenever we have had to call the police, it's like something like that. And we're trying to prove as Homes Now that there's a lot of people out there that are homeless but totally capable, totally stable, totally able to effectively run and manage a site for their own housing effectively. And they are looking for housing, but if there's a lack of options, this is the best thing that might be available while they're looking, right? And so, again, I go back to the average stay is 6 months to a year, but sometimes it's been shorter, and some people have been with us for a long time. But again, the people who have been with us for a long time tend to also be the most passionate about this too, like helping other people in the position. So like Tina Hayes down at Unity Village, she's the main manager down at Unity Village. She's lived there for 4 years. She might be finding housing soon, but like there's an option that might have just popped up. But she does an incredible job, and she is passionate about helping this organization and helping more people. And it's really, the thing that's really rewarding to see is when you see somebody come in and they're not doing so well, and then you see them over the course of months. It takes some time. Over the course of months, start to do better and start to get somewhere, and you see that they put themselves together more. They get less nervous. They get more relaxed, and then they're able to get a job, and they're able to like actually move out and find housing and stuff. Of course, we have our code of conduct and our rules, and not everybody that we've allowed to live at our villages has been able to follow that, and we've asked some people to leave as well. That is a thing, of course. And since we don't have the paid staff and we can't actually brute force it, and we can't just say this is what everybody has to do, our villages are also managed democratically. So when there is a major decision to be made, the village will get together in a meeting, and the issue will be discussed at length, and then we will vote on it. So I'm just letting everybody know, like, this is how Homes Now works. We don't use coordinated entry. For referrals. Everybody, we take referrals from everyone. Okay, so even though we're not part of coordinated entry, we still take referrals from the Opportunity Council. We've taken multiple referrals from the Opportunity Council, and they're the ones who are in charge or manage coordinated entry for Whatcom County, right? So a lot of times the way that looks is somebody sends a text or they say, hey, how does this, I have somebody who might be good for your program. How do we get them in there? And then we refer them to our website where they apply online on our website. Now, if somebody doesn't have a computer or a phone, we recognize that. We do allow people to visit because we are open to the public at both villages. So people are free to visit during the day. And if somebody is not able to have like a computer or a phone to fill out the application themselves, or they don't have a case manager to fill out the application for them, they can we will help them fill it out on the computer at on site or whatever, just to get the application in. We and we found that like going digital has been very helpful because we can keep track of everything, all the paperwork, but without having to have like file cabinets and like people's records maybe being like exposed. Because like previously we had like file cabinets on site, and it's like, okay, well, who's going to be going through people's files? And like it just made sense to just scan everything in, even if it's a piece of paper, scan it all in, and we have all our stuff digital and nothing actually on site, so nobody's information is compromised. But the intake process works like you fill out an application on our website if you're homeless and you need help, and again, it's not a wait list. Like, so I want to make that clear. We have 950 people who have signed up. Sometimes people are signing up when we're totally full, and it just kind of falls further down the list, it's a big database, so just like gets at the bottom of the pile. If you are homeless and you're looking for a place and we're full, keep checking in. Like you can actually just keep we have your application, it doesn't go away. Okay, so you can actually check in. Like let's say you had to figure something else out now, but then like 6 months from now you're still needing something. Like the process works that you apply on our website, and we send your name to Bellingham Police Department where they check for warrants and stuff like that. We do our own independent background check as well. And that process takes about a week or so, not on our end, but on BPD's end. It usually takes them a week to at least get back to us if a name is sent. So if you are homeless and you fill out an application, feel free to keep checking in, and squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like, so that's kind of what ends up happening is when we have an opening, there is somebody that's been checking in regularly, and they're like, no, I feel like I do really well there. I really need this. And then after they've already gone through that process, they are kind of at the front, right? So, but anybody who's ever previously applied, we have your information. So if you hit us up again, we can try to speed things along. Again, we wish we could set up more villages. Like, I'm all about us doing more. So like if the city or the county or a private landowner or anybody wants to set up more villages like what we do, we're ready. Like, the holdup is not on our end. The hardest part of this whole thing for us is somebody actually telling us, here's a spot you can set up a village on. And when it comes to raising money for building the structures and building infrastructure, that's a different problem. People see that it's going to happen and you've got it, but if you're like, hey, I'm trying to raise some money to build another village later, and I don't know where that's going to be, you're going to get zero donations, right? So this is the dynamic of okay. I saw a question. So can you state the question, because it's flashed by really quick.
Yeah, happy to. And we're at time. I want to acknowledge that. And if someone has to leave, I totally understand, but I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
And I want to thank you, Doug, for being so detailed, because as you were speaking, you answered like 4 of the questions I was going to ask you anyway. But and I apologize if you got short shrift here on time. Heidi is asking, are families allowed at homes now, and children?
So our contract with the city does not actually, like children are allowed to visit. Like, it's totally safe for kids to come to the village. But as far as children living at the villages, no, we actually, I don't think our contract actually allows for that with the city, because we're on city land, and we have certain terms. But we have helped families, though, meaning like if both family members are over the age of 18, a mother and a daughter, or a mother and a son, or a father and a daughter, or whatever. Like that has happened before. Yeah. So it's not a hard no on the families, but we haven't had children, and I also don't feel like it's the best. Like children need more support than what we actually provide, because again, like Homes Now is like pretty laser focused and surgical on the housing part or the sheltering part, and like treating the people who live there as like, yeah, you're an adult, you're independent, you're taking care of yourself, but you just happen to be homeless, and you also can help run this place. And so I feel like that there are other programs that probably are a little better tightly focused to help children and stuff like that. But we were not. But it's safe for any children to come. If any children, or if you or your children want to come tour either of our villages to see how it is there, like you can come anytime during the day. We're open during business hours, and yeah.
Thanks, Doug. So it sounds like as far as minors go, they're welcome to visit the site, but it's out of your scope to have them live there on site.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to go on to our updates, and then we're going to probably do it at lightning speed.
I'll try to be as fast as possible.
I really appreciate your time, Doug. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is update from the city of Bellingham, and Katie doesn't know it, but I'm looking at her.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate this discussion today. Appreciate hearing from everyone. I pulled up my notes. I have kind of a lot of updates, so I'll do my best to speed through them.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Bear with me. The first update is I want to give everyone an update on our home ARP NOFA that was released last month. So in September, the city published a notice of funding availability for our allocation of funding appropriated under the American Rescue Plan Act for the Home Investment Partnerships Program to provide homelessness assistance and supportive services. The city plans to use this funding to support homelessness prevention and diversion programs in the community, prioritizing proposals that serve vulnerable populations, such as families with children, seniors, and veterans. The last day to submit questions about this NOFA will be on October 10th. We'll post answers to questions we receive on an FAQ page, on our city partnerships page. I'll share a link to that after I'm done giving updates. But the deadline for all applications for this NOFA opportunity is going to be October 24th. The aim here is to announce awards in November and have new contracts for the program start on January 1st. So I'll put that link to the partnerships page in the chat. I'll also put my email, and folks can feel free to reach out to me if there's any questions. The next update I have is, I'm actually going to skip, it was the winter shelter program, which Road to Home Ashley gave a wonderful update there. I would just add that if folks are interested in staying on top of updates, I invite them to subscribe for news updates on the city webpage. I can put a link to sign up there in the chat as well. The next update is the shower program. I'm looking at Terry. I don't know if you're planning on making this update, so I'm sorry to steal your thunder if so. But I wanted to provide a quick update there. So as folks may remember, this past summer, the city released an RFP for qualified firms to solicit proposals indicating their interest in operating a shower program. And we ended up awarding the proposal from Opportunity Council. A quick overview of the program. The program is going to be operated by the Opportunity Council's homeless outreach team and will provide free showers and hygiene services to the community. It's going to operate via a mobile shower trailer in the parking lot behind City Hall at 210 Lottie Street, and it'll be in operation on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. The program aims to provide basic toiletry supplies to clients, and HOT team members will be available to refer clients to other community resources as well. it's expected the program's going to launch later this fall. If there's any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. The next update and the last update is I want to just note that the city is going to be sponsoring Housing Week the week of October 16th. Housing Week is a series of events intended to build awareness and support for housing solutions and innovations. I'll post a link to the Housing Week website in the chat, and it has an overview on the full schedule and opportunities to register for distinct events. I encourage folks to register away. All of the events are free and all are welcome to attend. And that's all I have. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. Chris, can you do an update for the county?
I will. Yeah, first, thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, emergency shelter operators, for operating emergency shelters. That is greatly appreciated. The thing to add my standpoint for the winter is we're working on, haven't quite finalized details, but we're working on a couple of projects, one to provide additional capacity during times of severe weather. Severe weather triggered activation that we're thinking will be for about 40 to 45 single adults somewhere in downtown Bellingham. We're finalizing the location with the owner. So I will give more updates once we have that secured. We are also working, Kellie-Anne kind of hinted at this, to use that former drop-in center on East Holly for another shelter bed. We're thinking another 40 to 45 individuals in there, most likely focused on women and women with children. So that will expand what we're doing for that population group. Additionally, the county's contracted with Ferndale Community Services to do 15 shelter beds up in Ferndale. And together with the city, we are expecting to fund about 45 motel rooms over the winter for families with children. So that's a little bit more than what we had last year. And we will hopefully have more details to provide in the coming weeks as some of those leases get signed and permits get authorized or approved, what have you. So we can say things with a little bit more certainty. Internally, we are adding a fourth person onto our housing team here at the end of the month. So I am very excited about that. Hoping to get more time to do some more kind of engagement with this group, some other groups that are working out there in the community, learn more about what's happening, how we can be more supportive. Just have a little bit more, we'll call it free time, but time to kind of work on some of those longer term projects rather than just like the daily grind stuff that has been very busy this year. We're working on a 2024 budget. It looks like we're going to be spending about the same amount in 2024 as we are in 2023, which isn't bad, but it's not great. Things have gotten more expensive. So we anticipate each individual is supported with rent, and the staff that we support should be getting raises as well. So we're going to stretch a little bit. There's a pretty good chance we're going to get some additional funding from the Department of Commerce that we just haven't seen yet early in 2024. So that should help that get us back on the level at least. Housing Week, Katie hit that already. Thank you for mentioning that. That's a great event. Lots of cool events there. We are hiring for the temporary shelter work. I saw Road to Home's got some jobs as well. They're even paying a couple bucks more than we are, but good for them. Different schedules, different kind of arrangement. Ours is going to be on a weather dependent thing. So if you've got some time to give, but not a full-time thing, that might be great. If you're looking for full-time work, get in touch with Ashley, our organization. They do great work as well. I think we'll wrap it at that. Feel free to reach out, ask questions. It's always a good time for an email. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chris. I want to add to that earlier Vaughn put a link in the chat to how you apply for the county's project for shelter, and actually put another link in there to how to apply for Road to Home's winter shelter. If anyone is interested or wants to point anyone in that direction. I'll do a very fast update for the service center, which is we're recruiting for shower attendants. The shower program, I think, is going to be great. It's for a year, so it's not a permanent opportunity, but is a really good way to kind of get your feet wet if you're trying to get into human services. I envision these jobs will be about 30 hours a week, so not a full FTE, a 0.75 FTE. So we'll be able to provide showers on 3 days, Friday through Sunday, as mentioned, and also HUT will continue to operate its partnership with the mission and use their trailer on Thursday at Salvation Army. So all told, we're going to have 4 days a week of shower provision, which I think is wonderful. Let's see, what else? Something else is kind of a weird thing. I'm excited about it, but maybe I'm just into the weeds on it. Melissa Nyberg is the assistant director here. She's worked so hard to improve our intake documents, and she's done that with a lot of work and input from our coordinated entry governing body. So that is launching this month, and along with that, we finally have ditched the VI SPDAT 2.0. It's taken us forever. We didn't completely get away from SPDAT. Remember, SPDAT is just, service prioritization, delivery, assistance tool, right? That's all it is. So the version of the SPDAT we're using does not have the restrictions on it that the 2.0 has. It does not have the restrictions on who can provide information to result in a score. And it's designed to be very conversational and collect a lot more information, which I think is a huge improvement. Downside, it's going to be more time consuming, and it's going to require a lot of skill to build rapport to that extent in that brief period of time that someone does intake. Overall, I feel like this is a very good improvement to our system. It's not the last improvement to our system. The Department of Commerce is working on developing a tool for balance of state participants, and we'll investigate that when the time comes. We'll see, maybe we'll change it again. And then the last thing I have to share is super good news. There is a great demand for eviction prevention. We probably all know that since the COVID-related resources have run out. And the demand is astonishing. And I don't think that we're having this volume of independent households requesting services, right? So don't freak out when I tell you this number. But Monday, being the first business day of the month, we received in the tens of thousands of calls to our rental assistance line. It's challenging our phone system. It does crash our phone system. Then people get really frustrated because they can't get through, and then they call again, and that it's kind of like exponentially challenging. So I just wanted to mention that because it's really hard for a small team of employees to handle tens of thousands of calls on a Monday. So please be patient. They're doing the best they can. That's all I have for an update. We do have 5 minutes for public comment. I know we're way over time, but I am happy to sit here and listen if anyone would like to speak. Okay, I don't see any hands. Let's see. Oh, I want to also mention here that Doug put a link in the chat. If you're homeless or know someone who's homeless who might work well with Homes Now, have them apply, and that's the link to their website. So on that note, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn. We're meeting again in December. The topic is going to be tribal resources, which is going to be really great. And I'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.